Helping create the magic of entrepreneurship in East London is how the head of Google's Campus London explained it to me. Easy Vidra is with me in the cab. Welcome to Reuters on the Road, Easy. Great to have you with us in the cab. You've got a loop of Canary Wharf to talk us through this. These Google Campus setups, just talk us through exactly what it is and what you do.
Sure. Usually the way that I describe it, if there was an equivalent between real estate and software, campus would be an open source building where Google created a platform, and working with multiple partners and with the startup community, we power the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. It's a non-for-profit, is that right?
It's a non-for-profit activity. It's a 7-story building filled with startups. So we have multiple partnerships. We have a cafe where entrepreneurs can work for free. We have co-working space where they can rent a desk rather than renting a whole office. We have accelerator programs, including Seed Camp and Springboard. We have Startup Weekend Europe. There's a whole slew of activities that goes on at campus.
So it's similar to Level 39 here in Canary Wharf. It's similar to the whole Silicon Roundabout setup, but the tech hub setup. Is that right?
I would say Level 39 is an accelerator program. It's part of what we do. We actually, the innovation about campus is that we combine co-working, acceleration, and a place for entrepreneurs to meet and host and have events. In November alone, we're having 109 events at campus.
I want to talk about London as a venue for this sort of thing. Today's newspaper, London is world's 7th best startup city, but no Silicon Valley. Does that kind of make your heart sink when you read stuff like that?
I used to live in San Francisco before moving to London, and I grew up in Israel, which are pretty high on the list.
Silicon Valley is number 1, Tel Aviv is number 2.
So I can tell you that I've seen places where it works, and I think that London has the potential to make it very high on this list. We have access to talent, to capital, and to ideas, and it's just about strengthening the ecosystem and strengthening the density of network that we have here.
They're saying here, and it's something I've spoken about before, again with Level 39 as well, that there's a significant funding gap for companies trying to get off the ground in London. How much of a problem is that, and how much support does the government give companies?
It's hard to speak about funding gaps in very general terms because it really depends on the stage of the startup. Actually, the government has done a lot in the EIS scheme in unlocking angel capital. So the very early stage funding is actually relatively easier to get than it was a few years ago, partly because of government support. But there is a funding gap in that stage that's pre-VC, between 500 and 1.5 million. If you're trying to raise 5 million, then it's very easy for you to do it.
Right.
But if you're trying to raise like a smaller amount, it just doesn't tickle the big funds in London, and we need to solve that.
What are some of the most exciting entrepreneurial companies that you've worked with over the past, say, 6 to 12 months?
There's so many. There's over 100 startups based at campus, so it would be hard to pick one. But what I'm loving is that there's daring ideas coming out of London and out of Europe as a whole.
Like what? Daring ideas like what?
I'll give you 2 examples. One company, it's building a mobile phone made of bamboo.
Okay, that's daring.
That's sustainable. I love the collaborative consumption stuff where it's instead of owning, it's helping people share existing products, and it's good for the environment. It provides happiness for the users, etc. I love
about 3/4 of the way around, by the way.
I love the hardware stuff. I love connected devices, and I see that in London we have more and more companies that are working on original ideas, solving real problems, and targeting a global market. So my advice for entrepreneurs would be, think bigger. Don't just do the copycat that we used to do for a local market. Think about a global market, building a company from the UK.
Do you think we could ever get to number 1 or even number 2 or even number 1 on that list?
I think we started much later. So
and is it as simple as that?
It's not that simple. We started much later. Culture needs to change. Tech is only becoming cool in London now. A few years ago, graduates thought about going to banking jobs as their first option, and I think they still do, banking and consulting, but it's changing because we're creating role models, we're creating these stories of entrepreneurs actually succeeding in building successful companies from London, and I think that they will inspire the new generation.
I mean, what is it about Tel Aviv? I want to pick your brains really now on Israel. What is it about Tel Aviv that makes that such a center?
Sure, I have my hobby is Israeli startups. I've been running a blog about it for the last 7 years, and I would say in the UK, if the national hobby is cricket, let's say, or football, in Israel it's startups. Everyone talks about it, everyone works in one, everyone wants to have one. And it's culture, and
Yeah.
you can do it. You can influence it by letting people believe that it's possible to do it.
And whose responsibility is that? Is it the government's responsibility?
I would say the government has a share, as a role to play, but it's also like schools, universities, media. You know, like who do we celebrate? Who are the entrepreneurs that are doing it big in the UK now?
Yeah. All right. I have no idea. Do you know?
I know a few, yeah, but it's not the ones that you hear about in the media.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Easy, it's been great to have you in the cab. Easy Vidra, who is the head of, how do we say it, Google Campus London.
Sure.
Is
Thank
that right?
you very much.
Google
Yes.
Campus London. Thank you so much for being in the cab.
Pleasure.
That was Reuters on the Road. I'm Axel Throlford.